right. We have a guest here today. Please introduce yourself. What team do you play for? What role do you do? And like any general information to know about your team.
Hi, I'm Potato. I'm the Charger player from Octopi. My main roles in the team is like I play backline. Backline sometimes I flex to support or midline, playing not, but mostly Chargers. And we got to coach the team Paraheli. It's a French team, so I don't know exactly how to pronounce their name, but they've been really fun to work with.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like before you got assigned the team, did you know anything about them or like have you ever heard of them before or is like this the first time you've ever heard of them?
Surprisingly, no, actually. This is like one of the few teams in like between the Div 5 and 11 range that I actually don't. I
Mm-hmm.
have never heard of them. Surprisingly, probably because they're French and they're sleeping when I'm at work. So,
Mm-hmm.
no, I definitely have not heard of them, but it's pretty nice getting to know some teams that you don't know. There's a lot of new ones popping up,
Yeah.
especially during Ludi.
Yeah, for sure. Just like, I mean, 600 plus teams. We can't, not one person can know all 600, you know?
Oh my God, exactly. It was kind of cool because like I look at this team and they play like the same comp that we do pretty much. So that was pretty cool and they kind of play the same roles ish and have the same kind of game plan. So it's been pretty enjoyable to like interact with them and they're so grateful as I'm sure a lot of the teams are uh to get kind of a free little coaching experience. It's really fun. And I like coaching anyways, so this is just a nice little addition to what I already do.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like you said it yourself, but this isn't the first time you are coaching, but as someone who has that coaching experience, what like did you try to bring to the table when trying to coach, I guess a new team that like you haven't heard of or like known them at all yet?
Well, it's always interesting getting to like know the players and because even though they play the same weapons as my team does, they're always played differently, you know. It's a different mindset, and you can have a tri-slosher player that plays full fizzy spam, or you could have one that is full left stick into the enemy team. So it's about getting to know how they play, and then how you can kind of enforce maybe some better ideas onto them that they might have not even thought of yet. Because I think the main benefit of getting a higher level player to coach you is that they'll say something so obvious, but it's always what you've needed to hear, and you're so kind of reinforced in your own mindset and comfortable that thinking a different way is more difficult than people think it is.
Ye-
Uh,
mhm.
so kind of just being able to be told something differently, it makes you just think about the game different from like a holistic standpoint.
Yeah, and that comes to like one of the points that another team did talk about, which is like some of the things that we do as like higher level players, mid level, high level, right? There's some of the things that we do are like instinctual. And when we go into coaching a lower level team where they might not have as much of the experience, like sometimes you do need to be like, okay, I do this off instinct, but I need to like try to explain it to them compared to like if you were to do it yourself, right? It's like thinking, I guess like thinking backwards if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you like it kind of makes you realize some other things about your own gameplay as well. Because some things are just, as you said, like so like natural, ingrained that you see someone not doing them and they're like, huh, I never like noticed, I guess, that that could be a common problem
Hmm.
in like different players. And it's like something that I've been doing for like years. And it's interesting to see it like, how do I explain it? It's interesting not to see it in a player that like you're just gotten so used to watching higher level gameplay and getting used to how they play, and then you see something like, oh, I wonder why they're doing that. It gives you a little like insight into how like different, I guess, like sometimes the game can be played.
Hmm.
It's always fascinating to me watching two like lowerish level teams like fight each other because it's like Huh. It's like so unorganized, but like organized in its own way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just a different like way to play the game, I guess. Not a way, but like it's a different level. It's a different skill level. It's interesting to see it because you don't really uh like, I don't know how many higher level players watch like stuff like Low Inc or LSL or FTIU anymore. I take great interest in watching that because it's always fun. And I just like watching Splatoon. We're all addicts here.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what you were saying is like really similar to like I guess like something someone else said was like once you start moving up the ladder, sometimes you like blind yourself from the things below you, but once you like, really look at it, there might be like different ways that you can understand the game through a lower level or like things that like you wouldn't have thought about when you're like at a higher level compared to like what you would look at in a lower level setting.
Yeah, like for sure. And even like as Octopi has climbed the imaginary div ladder, um where we consider ourselves pretty good, but we will still lose to like lower level teams. Especially when we kind of formed our new roster, we definitely lost to like a good few low level teams that like we're like, huh, how are these people beat us? And it's just because they don't we're so used to playing at a different pace of play. Sometimes you just kind of get ran at and get diffed and you're like, oh wow. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of surprising sometimes, but I think people like to take low level when you kind of move past it as kind of like almost like a joke. It's like, oh yeah, these people are just bad. And,
Mhm.
you know, they don't like to help them or enjoy watching the gameplay because it's just so disorganized. And, some people get kind of angry watching because like, oh my God, what are they doing? You know?
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely cover that topic in a little bit, but yeah, I know people are always like, oh, ill low level, especially when like you're high level, but there's always something to learn from every level. It doesn't really matter low level, high level, top level. There's always something to learn from it.
Oh, for sure. I can definitely say I've learned like more than a couple things just like coaching teams um in like the low ink LSL Div
Hmm.
6 7 range. It's like you definitely learn some stuff. Like you learn some stuff about maybe how you understand the game and also just stuff you can do that can directly translate to your own gameplay.
Hmm.
And you're kind of like, I think if you're really dedicated to coaching one team, you'll like watch them grow,
Hmm.
but also like you'll see improvement in yourself as well. It's pretty cool because most people don't like coaching or they don't think they're good at it.
Hmm.
And because most people just don't think they can explain the way they play the game, and most of it isn't like you're good at coaching. It's can you explain how you play the game in terms that someone else can understand?
Hmm.
And that's something that I kind of enjoy doing. That's something I really sucked at, but the first team I coached was like, kind of awkward. But then as you start getting better at it, you start learning more about like yourself and
Hmm.
even just ways you can improve too. It's pretty cool as long as having like 4 to 5, maybe 6 other players like watching you and like looking up to you.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess
It's very
like
very fun.
going into that like coaching idea, like going into coaching the team you guys got assigned, like let's say like one of the first things that you saw like when watching them play, what was like one of the things that I guess like they might have struggled with or like had a challenge with like during that scrim or VOD review, and like how did you try to like help them overcome this the struggle they had?
Uh, so I think the one of the biggest problems for I think it's Paraheli. I don't know. They have like 2 accents in their name. It's French. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but
Hmm.
it's fine. I don't have to anyways. So one of the first things I noticed was them is that they were very split up. They were kind of just playing 4 separate games instead of one team game together. And
Hmm.
that's a thing that I think plays a lot of lower level teams is that they're just kind of playing slightly coordinated solo queue.
Hmm. Yeah.
Pretty much. I think that's the best way to explain it. So one of the things that I told them was just to kind of look at it from like a roles perspective. And sometimes we have a Nautilus, like a Charger, a Zap, and like a Shot. Pretty normal-ish comp
Mm-hmm.
these days, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like positioning yourself relative to how your role should act. Like the Notch should be in the middle, your Zap and Shot should probably be at the front, and your Charger should always be at the back. It's kind of like a rule of thumb.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I told them to do was to kind of just open their map every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like just flash it and just see where you are, see where everyone else is, and how you could cover those blind spots so that it prevents people from almost taking 1v1s.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you'll just have one person that just like runs into your backline for some reason and then everyone turns around. Or like one person's fighting them and they don't call it out fast enough or they just don't call it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of becomes a problem. Because then if they lose that 1v1 in your backline, well, now you got a guy behind you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, I kind of just told them to like stick it together a little more. And like as simple as probably hundreds of times you've heard that. It's like, oh, play together, blah, blah, blah. Uh, just telling someone that can go a long way because it makes them double check themselves a lot. And
Yeah.
that's sometimes it's like a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of hesitation that can help you a little bit. But then it's gonna be hard from first.
Mm-hmm.
You're always hesitating, but once you get it ingrained, it'll just be a natural part of your gameplay.
Mm-hmm. And like I like that you gave them the example of like flashing your map because like I know what a lot of coaches were saying is like, you can't just like tell them to do something and hope they understand what you're saying, right? You need to help them like understand the concept of like applying like, okay, what does playing together mean? It doesn't mean just stacking all on top of each other, right? That doesn't make sense, right? But it's like, whether it's call outs, whether it's using the maps more, whether it's like, specific positional things, that's like, that's part of playing together, but sometimes they don't know what that means.
Yeah, it can be difficult because I think that's like the big thing that I think prevents a lot of players from coaching for a long part of time. It's like, I've been telling this team to do this for like a couple weeks now, and they're just not doing it. Well, they're like, it's probably because you're not telling them the right way to do it. Because it's just one thing I'm telling somebody to do it on paper, but then in practice, it's not like that. This game is so fast paced that you have to give an example. You can't just rely on someone to, especially someone that maybe doesn't even fully understand what you're talking about. They're like listening to you and they can digest what they're hearing, but they can't apply that anywhere
Mm.
because you're not giving them something to work off of. So, like another thing my team had kind of trouble with was like special usage.
Mm-hmm.
And you see like low level teams that they'll just sit there. Someone calls out to like, okay, let's get specials here, and then they all pop their specials at like the same time. And let's say normal team comp nowadays is like two Zukas, jetpack, and the cooler.
Yeah.
So they pop everything at the same time, but it's like you
What?
can't really do that
Mm-hmm.
because then no one makes space. Like the point of popping a Zuka or a jetpack is that someone's gonna make space. So when you pop them all at the same time, it does something. But then as soon as everyone's specials are over at the same time, you got no one to fight with them, and then you're just back at neutral.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I kind of
yeah.
yeah, go you can go.
Well, I was also gonna say it's like once you use all those specials, what happens when they use your specials on you?
Yeah, exactly. You have nothing to like continue that pressure or make them scared of you. 'Cause you pop everything at the same time. They just well tilt their left stick backwards, back up, and then run back to what they just were.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of negates all that space you just like took in quotes because you didn't really do anything unless you kill their team. Unless you kill like three or four of them, you're not going to be making much space. So they can always just move right back. So one of the things I had to tell them to do was like, okay, pop one of them first,
Mm-hmm.
and then move up, and then pop another one,
Mm-hmm.
and then pop another one. Because even if they don't know what that does, I don't even have to explain to them what it does.
Mm-hmm.
But just doing it and then explaining them after, like, okay, so now you guys did that. What did you notice?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait a minute, we were able to actually move up and not get infinitely staggered on humpback zones. So, you know, that's the difference maker there. It's giving them something to work off of, even if they don't know what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's very simple. Just, okay, don't pop them all at the same time. Call out who's popping them first and then do it in sequential order. And then it works. and you'll see improvement, and they'll be happy, and you'll be happy, and then everyone's gonna be happy.
I guess like it. I used this analogy with someone yesterday, but it's like give a person a fish, they have a meal for one day, but teach them how to fish, they have a meal for life, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's trying to give them the okay, I'm trying to teach you how to do this instead of let me just or I guess the example for giving them a fish is like telling them to play meta or something like that. But it's like no, it's like part of it is understanding why the meta works and what is so important because like same thing with like popping the special. It's like you want to be using your specials with some type of intent. You don't want to be just using it because oh I want to use my special.
Yeah, exactly. I think yeah, that kind of analogy was like give man a fish, he is fed for a day, teach a man to fish, he's fed for life. And
Mm-hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. Uh because sometimes you coach teams. My like theory behind coaching is that okay, if I'm gonna coach a team, I'm not gonna tell them to change their comp
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that like unless you're like high level, you can probably play anything and it's gonna work as long as you can just have some semblance of team play and
Mm-hmm.
positioning. Because a lot of lower level players have the mechanics to make all these weapons work a lot. Because most of them are one tricks or
Mm-hmm.
you know, but you can make a lot of things work. I think a lot of people get caught up on comps too much, not actually how to play the game, because you're not thinking about how to play the game. You're thinking about like a weapon you pick, which is like not something that I think makes you better. I don't think you can just play a weapon and get better at the game. I think it's like it takes a lot of time because like things rotate very fast out of the meta. So if you're stuck playing a meta weapon, it isn't even going to help you in 2 more months
Mm-hmm.
unless you're like super committed to it. But if you're just playing it to play meta, then I don't think that's going to work for you really. That's how you just get stagnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I think that goes into like some lower level teams are like meta meta meta. Some lower level teams are like no, I just play whatever I want. I think like there's merits to both sides, but it's like I think depending on which side you're on, it's understanding what you do well, right? If you're playing meta, it's like, okay, why is this meta? And then for off meta, it's like, what can I do to counter this meta? I guess. Like,
Yeah, because like I think if you're at this stage in like I think if you're at the skill level, if you're at like the Div 5 to 11 range,
mm-hmm,
you probably don't even need to understand why the meta works. Honestly, you probably don't.
mm-hmm,
Because right now the meta is just like, okay, I pop a special, you're gonna die. That's pretty much the meta right now.
mm-hmm,
And everything is either to negate or help you do that.
mm-hmm,
Cooler is to like negate Zuka and Jetpack does the same thing. It's just kind of all a flat circle.
mm-hmm,
I think what you were saying about like not even understanding is like very true.
mm-hmm.
So that was you said, right? Just like not, you don't even
Yeah,
need to understand. They don't know.
it's
Yeah.
like you don't know what it does, but if you play to like your strengths, then like that's how you're gonna keep improving.
Yeah. Like I coach a team right now. Their main comp is Zap, Vanilla Wiper, Ballpoint, and H3D. Now that's their main comp.
Mm-hmm.
And that comp is so fundamentally flawed in so many ways, but they just win with it. And it's like, okay, okay, so how am I gonna like coach a team that has one real special on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but that's the challenge of it because you look at this and like, okay, these people are very dedicated to their weapons though.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna make it work, and you gotta make it work, and then you see it work, and it's like, wow, I never thought that could work against like a full meta team, like double shot, swasher, pencil or something. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's pretty cool seeing it work, and like they're really happy, and it gives them a mental advantage for sure having an H3D in your team, and you're like losing to it. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, but yeah, I think I'm getting a little off track. Living back to like understanding like the meta and stuff. I think really, as long as you can get the fundamentals down at this kind of skill level that we're coaching these teams, you'll be perfectly fine. You don't need to go too in depth. So that just gets confusing and it's more things to think about. You want to keep the game as like simple as possible.
uh, I guess this isn't a great way of saying it, but like try to like dumb it down, make it as simple to digest as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Because this game can get very hectic very quick. So just being able to go back to like a single thought or like a very like it's just something simple.
Hmm.
Like we're in this game state. There's three game states. Okay, we got to get specials to do this. Just make it simple as possible because this game can get way too complicated way too fast if you don't know what you're feeding information to.
Hmm. I guess like as someone who has this coaching experience, what's something that you would tell a new coach when they're like not sure what to do as a coach, or like even just like they go get into the mind of like, oh, I'm not good enough to coach. Like what's something you would tell them to sort of like push themselves to do, to like go for it, or like to think about something.
I think the biggest thing to think about is like take it slow. Because it'll probably take you a good like maybe week, maybe 2, 3 VOD reviews to fully understand how the team is gonna like learn from you. Because they know everyone like just in school how they teach about the learning styles. That same thing kind of applies to coaching.
Hmm.
So you kind of have to find the style that works for maybe 5 to 6 people at the same time. Like, because you'll sell them a bunch of things, maybe that won't work,
Hmm.
or maybe they're having a hard time. But you gotta ask them questions, and you gotta be like, okay, what are you guys struggling with? What do you think you're struggling with?
Hmm.
And then you kind of adapt that to them because everyone's gonna tell you something different, but there's gonna be at least one thing in common. So I think the biggest piece of advice would just be, take it slow. Don't get frustrated that maybe you're coaching a team and they don't think you're listening to you.
Hmm.
You got to keep it like slow, keep it simple, and then eventually you'll find something that just like clicks for both you and them, and then you can start like at a better foot than, maybe when you actually started coaching them.
Yeah, I think like that's something that like probably like people who have coached longer, it's like, your first few coaching gigs or just sessions are never gonna define you. They're like just your stepping stone to really understand.
Yeah, that's why I don't really like get too many like people pay for coaching. I don't think that's the most effective way
Hmm.
to coach somebody because it's like a one-time session. It's a one-time thing.
Hmm.
If you want to get a coach, I don't think it should be a one-time paid session. I think that's just going to kind of give you sometimes it can sometimes work out perfectly, but most of the time it's not. It's gonna give you maybe a little bit of a flawed idea on exactly what you need to do.
That.
So I think
Hmm.
getting like maybe a friend or someone that's better than you just in general
Hmm.
can just you build a nice like friendly connection with them and then hey, I need some advice here. And I think eventually like that can form into a nice friendship. Not saying to, like use your higher level friends as coaches, but I think it's just kind of a bad idea. Not just a bad idea, but not the best one to go and pay for like a coaching session because you think that'll just fix everything in your gameplay.
Definitely. I mean, my perspective on paying for coaching is I like to think of it as supplemental, as something like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm really struggling on this one topic, or I'm really struggling with this one thing. I've asked people I know and they're not too sure like how to help me. Let me go to a professional, someone who like
Hmm.
just knows way more than like what I would. And like that's usually how I looked at paid for coaching, but like, I would never just go to it be like, okay, I'm just going to like pay monthly for this, because also sometimes those coaches are like, I can only help you so much until like I
Hmm.
gave you all the information I had.
Yeah, it's more about like applying it and because I think a lot of people focus on they bring up too many concepts at the same time.
Hmm.
So when you're coaching a team that is already trying to figure out how to get better and not I don't think is everyone necessarily happy with being where they are.
Hmm.
Sometimes people aren't. Sometimes people aren't. Sometimes people like, okay, I want to be not Div 7 or not Div 6. I want to be like Div 4 or 5.
Hmm.
So sometimes people are already frustrated before, you even come to them or they even ask you. So
Hmm.
you have to be like, okay, let's not give them more things to worry about. Let's just give them one at a time. I think
Hmm.
that's a bigger thing too.
Yeah.
Another piece of advice is just like give them one thing at a time and just keep going up and adding things slowly.
Hmm.
Because just going into their first session, you probably see so many things, but you can only like probably really chime in on one of them because that's going to be the best thing for them to focus on.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess like moving on from all that coaching stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
we've talked a lot about it, But I guess going into our last topic is um like obviously both you and me are helping run this event, and this was our like this is our goal, and we are sort of the exception. But I think if you were to look at it from an outsider's view, do you think this event helps bridge the gap between the different skill levels of the community? Like I know a lot of the time when low ink is happening, either when the teams get banned or like they're like looking through rosters, they're like, I don't why am I watching low ink? Why should I watch low ink? This is all so boring. Or like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know who to cheer for. And like in terms of like lower level, not everyone there really knows who to ask for help, right? So like, do you think this event is like helping break that ice between the different levels?
I think it definitely helps a lot because I've like seen a lot of feedback, and I'm a TO for this event. Spoiler. Um, I think it does a great job at that. I'm looking through all these team chats, and people are like so grateful, and everyone all around is really nice, and everyone's like, everyone wants to do this, and it's really fun to see that because when you have people that want to do it, you're going to get a lot more out of it holistically. Everybody is.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the cool things about this event. It's like there's been nothing else like it. We're like, okay, you just it's pretty much like how do I I'm thinking of like a game show or something. Maybe not. I think I forgot it. But,
Yeah.
but it's like no, I don't have it. I lost it. So,
You're good, you're
but
good.
it's really really cool. It's just seeing them all interact, and it's all so friendly and fun, and that's what makes it really. It's like first you got to be friends, and then you can really get a lot out of it first.
Hmm.
Um, I think it definitely does help bridge some gaps because everyone's getting something out of it. It's never going to bridge the gap completely, but
Hmm.
maybe the coach will want to keep coaching that team, and maybe it won't end here. I think that's when it will start helping because maybe the connections can become more than just a 2 week tournament span. Maybe it can become more than that, and that's what I would hope.
Hmm.
It definitely won't happen with everybody, but even like one team gets that kind of connection, that's cool. That's really cool.
Hmm.
I think that's what would make it all worth it.
Yeah, I know like some people have told me they're like, I've never thought about coaching before, but like having this opportunity, they're like really into it. They want to do more, or like they even like are planning after this event's over, are offering them. It's like, hey, if you guys want this long term, I'm here to help you guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will want to do that. Because I think a lot of these teams definitely. I don't think most of the teams have ever coached another one. Especially some of because we have a pretty wide range of teams from Crush Soda to Div 3 teams like Thembo IHOP and Trip Hazard.
Hmm.
So, everyone is definitely diving into something different here, I think. And 100%, most of these teams have never coached anyone before, I don't think. Or not
Hmm.
have actually coached. Definitely given advice, but never fully um like taken a dive into the coaching sphere. So I
Hmm.
think maybe we can inspire some new coaches. Uh but I think other than that, that's it actually. That's all I gotta say.
No, yeah, for sure. And like, I think if we can grow this event even more, the interest for people to become coaches increases. The interest for like sometimes low level teams don't know they need coaching, and like this is where they can seek that help.
hmm Yeah, I think coaching also something everyone's kind of busy. And you're not always able to get a whole team plus the coach on at the same time. So something that also is helpful is kind of giving them something to look out for themselves that they can kind of do as a team without you.
Mm-hmm.
So it also can extend maybe, even if the coach doesn't want to keep coaching that team, they can give them some tips to help them extend their own skill set themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty important as well.
For sure. I guess we've been talking for a little bit now, but thank you for your time,
Yeah,
obviously.
of course.
Thank you for like hosting this event. But I guess where can people find you, Potato? Where can people find Octopi? Like, do you guys stream? Do you guys have Twitter? all of those stuff.
Well, sadly, I used to stream, but I don't stream because everyone's my team is scared and they're little babies now. We don't stream anymore. Sometimes, but you could pretty much all my socials are just elevated potato, one word, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Discord. Everything is pretty universal. Want to find me? Just elevated potato, one word. No O's, no ones in places for other letters. Yeah.
And how about Octopi? Do you guys have a Twitter?
Our Twitter handle is octon_SPL.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Potato, for your time and for this
For
interview.
having me. Thanks for having me, Rice. It's always a good time.